What would happen if I turned one of the hardest maps in Bloons TD6 into one of the easiest? Well, dudes, in today's video, that's exactly what we're going to be doing. Using the BTD6 map editor, I'm going to be turning one of the hardest maps, Ravine, into a beginner map using the BTD6 map editor. Now, the first thing we need to do when creating a brand new map in Bloons TD6 is we need to go ahead and get the paths laid out. Now, the path that I want to use is I want to use this path for this video because I think for Ravine, this is actually similar to the path that's actually used in the actual Ravine map. So this is going to be the basic path layout for Ravine. If you guys take a look at the screenshot right here, you guys will see like this is exactly how Ravine is laid out. Now we need to turn this map from an extremely hard map into an extremely easy map. And the easiest way to do that is just by changing the paths. So instead of having the normal 4 exits for Ravine, I'm going to turn the 4 exits into 1 because it's always easier to have 1 exit opposed to having 4. Now, the only thing I need to do is I need to find out like what would be the best position for the balloons to exit. I think if we had all of the balloons exit right here, it would probably end up being the best. So the first thing we need to do is we need to go ahead and edit this path over here. And I want to move the exit so the balloons are exiting right here. So let's go ahead and combine these two pathways like this. Now all of the balloons on the left-hand side of the map should be exiting over here. So I'm going to go ahead and combine the rest of the pathways in order to make this a little bit of an easier map. All right, so there we go. And now I went ahead and I changed all the paths so we no longer have 4 exits, which that should drastically decrease how hard this map is. Now that we have the paths laid out, the next thing we need to do is we need to go ahead and add the river in the center of the map. All right, so there's the river that goes through the center of the map. Now we need to go ahead and set up a bridge across each of these paths because, I mean, Ravine has the 3 bridges, which is one of the things that makes this map a little bit harder. So for the bridges, I'm just going to be using the normal bridge that is in the actual map editor. And I want to use this bridge here because I want to change the fact that you can't place water towers on this map where the water towers can actually hit the balloons. So there we go. We have the 3 bridges now. Now, I'm not going to be adding any barriers with these bridges because, again, I want to make sure that we can place water towers and the water towers can actually hit on top of these bridges. Because, again, that's one thing that makes Ravine a little bit harder because those bridges act as obstacles for your towers so they can't actually hit the balloons while the balloons are on the bridges. Now, because this is Ravine and they do have a lot of trees, we will be using trees. So it's not going to be a super easy map, but I will make it so that the trees don't interfere too much. All right, so we have all of the trees set up, but now in the normal Ravine, we have a bunch of trees that block us placing towers down here. But in this version of Ravine, I'm going to make it so that this little path here doesn't have any obstacles that will stop our towers from actually hitting balloons. So now that we have all of the trees placed, the next thing we need to do is we need to add a couple of details. So one of the biggest details with Ravine is the sword that is in this stone place right here. So luckily in the map editor, we actually have a stone that looks similar to that stone. And I think that this stone looks pretty similar to the stone that's used on Ravine. So we'll add a little bit of detail to the stone in order to make it look a little bit better. Because you guys know that I like adding a little bit of flair whenever I create a map. All right, there we go. Now we need to find an obstacle to use as a sword. I wonder if there's anything that actually looks like a sword that we can use in order to make it look like there's an actual sword there. I don't think there is, but I still want to try. Maybe instead of a sword, we'll use like a lamppost. This is maybe a little bit harder. I wish we could like, wait, we can use this. What if we like tilted this on its side like this, and then we just made it a little bit smaller? Would this look like a good sword? Oh, I think I can actually make this work because if we copy it and then if we rotate it, what if we could actually make this look like an actual sword? We need to rotate it like this, and then we need to rotate it again, and then we need to go ahead and make it so it's linked up with this tree right here, with the pole like this. And I think that actually looks like a pretty decent sword, right? So we have our sword placed. Now, the next thing I want to do is that I think we have a couple more rocks that we can place over here. And then we'll add a little bit more detail to the map because right now it looks a little bit bland. So you guys already know the deal with like a detail on these kinds of maps. The biggest thing that we can do to add a detail first is by using stamp. Now, I want to use these leaves because sometimes in rivers, you guys will get like these pile of leaves. And I think this would add a little bit of detail to make it look like a little bit more of a river that goes through the middle of a forest. Now, of course, we need to add ourselves some flowers because, I mean, we're in the middle of a forest. Of course, there's going to be flowers, guys. And the best way to take away from the blandness of the background is by using flowers. Now, when you guys are adding flowers to your maps, you guys want to make sure that you guys don't use like the same flower stamp over and over. Otherwise, it'll start like making a pattern to where it'll have the opposite effect of what you're going for, and it'll actually make your map look a little bit more bland. Now, one thing that I hope Ninja Kiwi adds to the map editor is I hope they add different colored flowers for stamps. That way we can add a little bit more effects, because right now we only have a couple of options for flowers and there's not really much to choose from. Also, another thing I hope they add is the option to actually like change the direction of the stamps yourself, because not being able to change the direction of the flowers actually makes it way harder to use stamps. All right, and as far as like flowers and like rocks and stamps are concerned, I think that should do it for the stamp. Like, we don't need to go too crazy. Like, we will be adding some shadows once we place down some more features, but this is pretty good for the start. Now, you guys already know the deal. I really like using shrub. Like, these shrubs look really, really good for like giving it that forest vibe. So I'm going to go ahead and add some shrubs around the map to add a little bit more of an effect. And the best part about these shrubs is that you can actually place towers on top of these shrubs. So you don't need to worry about these shrubs actually blocking your towers from actually hitting Bloons. And look at how much detail we just added to the map by just adding a couple of shrubs. Like, this is why this is probably one of my favorite props in the map editor, is because it's so easy to add a little bit of a detail to your map to make it come to life a little bit more. So now that we've added a couple of shrubs, I want to go ahead and add a couple of rocks, because generally when you have a river, you guys will definitely have a bunch of rocks that are next to the river. And of course, just because I'm trying to make this an easy version of Ravine, that doesn't mean I want it to be too easy, because I mean, this is Ravine. And I struggled so hard on this map. The only question is what rock I want to use. I think I'm just going to use this rock right here, because I think this rock looks pretty good for a rock that you guys would find next to a river. Now, with this rock, I do want it to like kind of be overlapping with the river a little bit, because generally when you have like rivers next to rocks, they will be kind of partially in the river. At least that's what the rocks that I've seen next to rivers have looked like. All right, so we have one pile of rocks right here. Let's go ahead and add another singular rock up here, because up here looks a little bit too bland for me. We'll add a rock right here, and then I think I want to add a secondary rock on its side. So let's go ahead and add another rock right here. We'll go ahead and make it a little bit smaller to add a little bit more of an effect, like this, and I think that looks pretty good. And then we'll add one more rock over here, because again, I really like these rocks next to the river, and it's small details like this that can really make your maps come to life. So I think that should about do it for the rocks next to the river. Let's go ahead and add a couple more rocks up here, because on the original version of Ravine, there is a couple of rocks here. So for that rock, we'll go ahead and add this rock, and then we'll add like a little hill. Like, we won't go too crazy with like the hill rocks, but I think this should look pretty good. All right, so we added a little bit of a rock feature over here, which again brought our map to life like a lot. So the next thing I want to do is I want to add a couple of shrubs around this rock, because generally like the rock looks a little bit barren right now. But after we add a couple of shrubs, it'll bring it to life a little bit more. All right, there we go. We brought our rock to life a little bit more. Now, the next thing we need to do is we need to add a little bit more detail to the river, because right now the river looks a little bit bland. And in order to add a little bit of a detail, I'm just going to be using a couple of lily pads. So generally when you find like a river where there's rocks, you guys will see a lot of lily pads next to the rocks. So let's go ahead and add ourselves a couple of lily pads next to these rocks. So we've added a couple of lily pads around the rocks that really made our river have a little bit more detail. Now, the next thing I want to do is I want to find the fish, because every time you guys see a river, you guys will always see fish in that river. And generally when the fish hang out in a river, they'll hang out really, really close to lily pads. That way they can get out of the sun a little bit, and they can go ahead and like get a little bit of shade. Plus, if I'm not mistaken, that's where like a lot of bugs hang out and stuff. I'm not like a fish expert or anything like that. I'm just going off of like what I think. All right, so we've added a couple of fishies, and now the next thing I want to do, I want to add a couple more lily pads right here, because right here is like really popping out for being bland. So add a couple more lily pads over here. All right, and that adds a little bit of detail there that takes away from the blandness of this little section. Now I want to add a little bit more detail. And generally, whenever you see like lily pads and stuff like that, or a river, you guys will generally have cattails. So by using these cattails, we can add a lot of a detail next to our river. And you guys don't need to go like super crazy with the cattails. You guys just need to like bunch them up in like groups of 2 to 3. And when you're placing down your cattails, it's always really good to add like a couple of them that are tilting, because whenever you see cattails, they're not all like facing the same direction. You always have like some that are kind of like tilted. Some are almost like even touching the ground, depending on how big the like bulb is. And it's amazing how by just adding a couple of cattails, it really adds to the river aspect. And it brings your map to life a little bit more. Now, one thing you guys will usually see next to rivers and stuff like that are frogs. And luckily in Bloons TD6 map editor, we actually have the option to use frogs. So place ourselves a couple of frogs on these lily pads. It's not going to be perfect, but I think this should work out quite well. So add one frog here. We'll add a second frog here to add a little bit more detail and add a little bit of life to our map. And we can also add a couple of dragonflies to bring our map to life a little bit more. All right, there we go. I think the map is really starting to shine. Now, the river still looks a little bit bland, and I wonder if I can fix that by using the stamps. I think by using the stamps, there is one thing that I think will bring a little bit of life to the river, and that is this option right here. So I'm not exactly sure what this is supposed to be. I think there's supposed to be like sunspots on the river. But if we add these throughout the river, it'll make it look like a really shallow river with rocks underneath. And again, it's just to add that little bit of something to make the map look more alive. So I'm trying to like give this one last overview. I don't want to add too much, because if I go like crazy with like adding props and stuff, then it's going to seem cluttered. And I think right now we have like a good ratio of props and like different things that make this map pop. So as far as like the beginner version of Ravine, I think this should about do it. Again, I don't want to add any more trees here. Maybe I'll add one more tree here, because I don't want it to be too bland. So add one more tree here, and then we'll add like another tree over here. And this should take away from the blandness of the bottom of the map. And then actually, you know what? I want to add another tree over here, because I think this would look pretty good. There we go. And then after we grab that tree, we need to grab ourselves a couple more shrubs to place down here. Man, I love me some shrubs. All right, there we go. And just add a couple of shrubs around the tree to bring it to life, or add a little bit more detail. There we go. And I think that looks pretty good, guys. I don't know. Let me know in the comments below if you guys like this map. Next thing that we want to do, let's take a look here. Is there any other details that we can add? I guess we can add like one more group of flowers here. And I think by adding this group of flowers, that should pretty much put a seal on it. Wait, no. We'd add a couple of shades. So we'll use these stamps here to add some shades around the rocks to make it look like the sun's out. Then also we'll add some shade around the trees as well. There we go. And I think that should about do it for the beginner version of Ravine. The last thing we need to do is we need to go ahead and play our map. Oh, wait, there's one more thing that we need to do, and we need to come up with a name for our map. So, let's just do Beginner Ravine. All right, so now that we've selected our name, the last thing to do is just to give our map a try. So let's go ahead and start up the game. Now, this should be fairly easy for our towers to deal with this. So I think we can just start off with our Soda and a free dart monkey. Now, the only thing that's a little bit questionable is which side the Moab balloon is going to come out on round 40. Now, I would play on Chimps, but I actually want to see how many of you guys can actually beat this map on Chimp. And if I beat it on Chimps, then that means I'm going to give you guys the solution for beating it on Chimp. So that's exactly what I'm going to be doing. I'm going to be challenging each and every single one of you guys that watch this video to beat this map on Chimps yourself. So our Soda and free dart monkey start is working perfectly. Now, the only question is, what kind of a defense do I want to go with here? I think because it's an easy map, I want to go with the classic Ninja Monkey and Alchemist combo, because if the Ninja Monkey Alchemist combo works on this map, that means it is a true beginner map. And dudes, I don't think I mentioned this at the start of the video, but I actually got this video idea from somebody in the comments, and that dude is named Ronnie. So a big shout out to Ronnie for helping me out with an idea for this video, because I thought it was a really fun, unique idea that I actually didn't even think about. Like, I thought it'd be cool to like turn a beginner map into an expert map, but for some reason I didn't think about turning an expert map into a beginner map. So a big shout out to him and a big thank you to him as well. And also, that being said, if you guys have any ideas for maps that you guys would like to see me try and create, please feel free to let me know in the comments below. If it is a really cool idea, I'll go ahead and give it a shot. Now, obviously, I can't redo like high finance because we don't have the buildings or the props in the map editor yet in order to make that happen. But hopefully that's something that we can actually make in the future. So if by chance Ninja Kiwi, you're watching this, or some dude at Ninja Kiwi is watching this, please add the buildings from high finance into the map editor, because there are so many cool ideas that we can make with those props. Also, I know I said it when the map editor first dropped, but I would also like to see a carnival update or like a theme park update where we could actually like use like Ferris wheels or merry-go-rounds or like bumper cars, or like having the track be like a roller coaster. I think that would be such a cool idea for the BTD6 map editor. Also, if you guys have any ideas for really cool props for the map editor, please feel free again to let me know in the comments below, because there is so many different things that I can think of that would make this so much more amazing. But it's already pretty amazing as it is. I mean, if you look through the map browser, like there are so many really cool ideas that are coming to life that I didn't even think about. Like, I was looking through the map editor earlier today, and I saw somebody made a Kraken that looked absolutely fantastic. And also, speaking of the map browser, if you guys came up with any cool map ideas yourself, or created your own map, so please feel free to leave a code in the comments below. And if it's cool, I may even do a video on it. All right, dudes, we are on round 39. We have one round left until round 40, and we will officially be able to upload our map. Let's go ahead and add ourselves one more spike factory here, and we really didn't even need it. Our towers were more than enough to deal with that Moab land. But anyways, dudes, this is the beginner version of Ravine, and if you guys want to play this map for yourself as well as beat it on Chimps, here is the code for the map. But anyways, dudes, again, I really hope you enjoyed the video. If you guys did, please feel free to leave a like, or if you guys are subscribed, make sure you guys subscribe as well, because I do upload a lot of Bloons content, and I upload daily Bloons content on top of that. But again, that's gonna do it for the video, and I'll see you dudes in the next one.